Hello, everybody. This is Mike Ryan, owner and director of baseball training and development at Fastball USA Training Center near Chicago, and welcome to our first podcast event in regards to the Fastball USA Training Center. And today's topic, our first topic that we'll have, is what I'm very passionate about, and it's the concept of being overcoached versus undertrained. And in my opinion, that's what we have here. Growing up in America, if you're a baseball player in America, you are now suffering paralysis through analysis, the overcoaching of modern day baseball versus being undertrained. And it's exactly what's holding back probably 90% of the baseball players out there, and it's a large part what's going to keep them from actually reaching their goals. So the World Series just ended last night, and the Royals won. The Royals were celebrating their victory over the Mets. And as I watched the Royals celebrating, and you watch the Mets teams and all the teams throughout the playoffs, you start to get a good feel of the reality is, and there's a lot of non-U.S. players on that field celebrating. And very specifically, there seems to be a lot of Dominican players out on that field celebrating, which is really good for them. But my question to you and to everybody out there is, why are there so many non-U.S. born players on that field? And when you think about it, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's start with the Dominican Republic, where it's an island of roughly 9 million people versus whatever our 360 million people here. So how on earth could they be producing such a high caliber baseball player compared to our numbers and the size of our country? So let's start with that. Number one, they don't have access to the things that we have access. Our baseball players, they have access to private lessons, personal trainers. They have access to video analysis, high-tech equipment, the nicest facilities, and a lot of them go well beyond that in terms of strength training. We have all these answers. We play travel baseball. We play hundreds of games a year. And yet, kids from the Dominican Republic who don't have the equipment that we have are kicking our butts. So let's start there. $300 bat, check, for a kid in America. $300 glove, check, for a kid in America. Many of the kids in the Dominican Republic do not have that type of equipment, and yet they are coming to America and they're better at baseball. So a lot of people have different reasons for that, but I think one of the core roots of that is they are growing up, in a sense, self-training themselves to become tremendous baseball players. Where in America, we're taking very good athletes and making them less athletic by overcoaching them, by really trying to teach them how to play, where the kids in the Dominican are simply playing the game day to day. In a sense, they're self-training. Also understand that there's a different intent. The intent from a kid who's growing up in the Dominican, especially if he becomes serious about baseball, is he realizes that unless he throws the ball hard enough or he hits it far enough, he's not going to go to America, which in many cases means they're not going to leave poverty. In America, we're growing up in a situation where we have to win this weekend's tournament. And if you're a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, winning that trophy becomes very important. So we become very shortcut-oriented. We become all about win now. So we end up basically training ourselves to win those games, where a kid in the Dominican knows that if he doesn't throw the ball hard enough, hit it far enough, he does never leaves the island. And I think it was that Sammy Sosa once said, you can't walk off the island, correct? And, of course, referring to you better hit your way off the island. But yet, when you go across to youth league baseball fields today, you hear terms like ball four, base hit. So get back to the concept of being overcoached and undertrained. Is in this day and age, with all the coaching we have, people going for private lessons, and the information that we have through video and through high technology, we have the big assumption is here, and this is where I think the difference is. You take a former professional or a college player or a college coach or anybody who sets up a shop today, and they start teaching a kid. The first step is you're assuming that the coach has the knowledge. Secondly, you're hoping or assuming that he has a process to implement that knowledge. And then you're assuming that he's communicating it well to the athlete. Then you're assuming that the athlete is going to understand it correctly. And then you're assuming that he's going to apply it correctly. That's a lot of assuming. And that is something, obviously, we can't afford. So in the United States, when we're talking about teaching our guys, there's a lot that can go wrong. But in terms of being self-trained, that is really huge. And that is where kids in America are really not doing well. When we talk about self-train, that means you have to leave room for trial and error. And I think what a lot of people are doing is they think they could buy their way through the trial and error. And when I say buy their way through it, is if I go for private lessons, even though you might take less swings than somebody else, you're assuming that you're going to have the information, you'll just be smarter, and that's going to fix everything. I've even heard stories of people struggling in a game, and in the middle of the game, the parent calling their private instructor. That's the world that we're currently living in. But what happens with when you do get a player in America that is excellent, like a Mike Trout or a Bryce Harper, guys who are U.S.-born guys and do have power, it is so rare nowadays that you really pay attention to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to an article, a great article called "The Swing of Beauty," and it was around Bryce Harper's rookie year. And Harper talks about, and his dad talks about how he grew up. And we have a saying at Fastball USA. We always say, "Success leaves clues." So let's kind of read some of this from the article to kind of see. Let's see how Harper grew up compared to the overcoached environment that most people are in. And Harper, when asked about how he got a swing, says, and this is quote, "I don't know how I got my swing or what I did. I know I worked every single day. I know I did as much as I could with my dad. But I never really looked at anything mechanical. There was nothing really like, oh, put your hands here or put your hands here. It is put your hands where you're comfortable, and you're comfortable here, hit from there." So number one, he says, I worked every single day. In other words, he swung the bat every day. So when people are taking shortcuts and saying, I'm going to go for a private lesson once a week, or I'm going to go practice twice a week, you have to outwork people. And in that sense, when we start to take shortcuts, it starts with, well, I'm going to buy more knowledge than the next kid has. But what we're missing there is the practice that has to go on every day. And then the problem is, if you're getting bad information, now you're also practicing the wrong thing. So that starts right there as a problem. Two, Harper goes on to talk about how often he worked. And Bryce Harper in the article says, Bryce Harper could not fathom how many soft tosses or batting practice pitches his father threw him. Millions. That's quote, millions, he said. Absolute millions. When he played football in high school, he would sneak into the batting cage between the end of class and practice, taking swings while wearing fully padded football pants. Ron Harper, Bryce's dad, coached his son with small reminders and large bullet points. He would tell Bryce to focus on hitting the ball to the opposite field or offer advice like keep your hands inside the ball. But he never bogged down Bryce with detailed instruction. I find that absolutely amazing, and it's something that most people in America, and this includes instructors, that really, in my opinion, do not get. They are so consumed with what everything looks like. What they end up building is, for example, in a hitting motion, they end up building a pretty swing. And pretty doesn't necessarily mean you're a good hitter, and that's what people need to see. And again, in that quote, Harper says absolute millions. You're talking about a guy there who is working and allowing for trial and error to actually happen. And speaking of trial and error, one of the things that Ron Harper then goes on to say, he says, I've always been a big believer, and there's times when you got to let people go and let them figure it out for themselves. That is Ron Harper being quoted. Again, I've always been a big believer, there's times when you got to let people go and figure out for themselves. Ron Harper being quoted on what I would say is adjustment. Kids need to learn how to self-adjust and coach themselves. In the Dominican, that environment is there because parents are not hovering over the kid every swing they take. Okay? Here, there's a lot of kids, I guarantee you, in this world who haven't taken a swing or thrown a ball without an adult around. Right there creates an environment that is completely different than an environment that a kid has grown up to in the Dominican. And just to reinforce the adjustment example, Bryce Harper talks about an event that happened when he was 7 or 8 years old, playing on his older brother's tournament, or team during a tournament. And he says, quote, this kid throws me a fastball inside, and I hit it not 9 miles, but foul, and off to the right. And he talks about they ended up just throwing me off speed, and I had never saw that before. This is a new picture. The whole tournament, they were just like, don't throw that kid a fastball inside because he'll hit it a mile. That's when Bryce figured out, and quote, well, I need to start trying to hit the ball the other way and work on some things. And again, there's an example of failing and then having to make an adjustment. And maybe the biggest thing we learned from this article called The Swing of Beauty is his father talks about, with his father taking batting practice at local fields or in the garage, Harper programmed himself to hit off-speed pitches and pitches on the outer edge to the opposite field. He was only 7 or 8, but the idea stuck in his head. Now, it says he did not focus on mechanics to achieve his goal. The proper mechanics arose from his mission, like learning a language through immersion. And I'll repeat that last part. He did not focus on mechanics to achieve his goal. The proper mechanics arose from his mission. Now, that's the part that people in America do not get, and it becomes really that's the point that I'm trying to prove. We become trying to overcoach things where players start to become mechanical, robotic, thinking too much, as opposed to where Bryce Harper grew up in an environment where it was we're here to swing the bat, hit the ball hard, and we're going to adapt and adjust when we're screwing it up, and we're going to take a lot of reps in the process doing it. His swing was developed based on his goal, not the other way around. They didn't cut out to say, let's build a swing of beauty, the article name. It happened on the opposite because they were out there working on his swing and specifically hitting the ball hard and hitting it far, and they developed a swing of beauty. It is completely backwards to how kids in America work, but is very like what you're seeing the kids in the Dominican happen to them. They're not being overcoached. They're not being over-instructed, and that's a very important point to make. Now, just very recently, in August 2015, I created a book, a new release. It's called Creating the 100-Mile-Per-Hour Hitter. And in that book, purposely, I do not go into the 101 mechanical points of hitting because I know that that's exactly what people are getting nowadays and what's screwing them up. Instead, I provide a simple formula that revolves around the 9 training concepts in which if you can focus on these 9 training concepts, you will begin to improve just following these basic concepts. Now, a little bit of it might be newer technology, but it's combined with old school concepts. So that book, again, is Creating the 100-Mile-Per-Hour Hitter. It came out in August. All you got to do is Google it or go to Amazon, and that just came out. And get that book because it's a great guide in the concept of self-training, training yourself to become a great baseball player as opposed to trying to be taught how to become a great baseball player. Now, going forward here, I just want to kind of wrap this up in the concept of training yourself, because I know a lot of people out there will be like, well, you know, how are you supposed to train yourself to be a good hitter if you don't know what good hitting is? I will say this. You know what good results are, do you not? And a good result is hitting the ball hard, and a good result is hitting the ball with good flight. It's just like throwing the ball hard and throwing the ball accurate. Okay, it's basically the same thing. If you pay attention to those results and you focus on getting those results as part of your training. So a few basic checkpoints I'll leave you with on this concept is, number one is be an athlete first. If you are anywhere near becoming mechanical or robotic, you need to run the other way and stop what you're doing. For example, for hitting, you need to be an athlete with a bat in your hand. You need to be, secondly, the second point to make your note on is be results-oriented. Be a results-oriented player, and especially during training, do not be process-oriented. Understand the result you're getting and then adapt and adjust. Now, a simple example to that is if you're a pitcher and you're missing low and you're missing low and you're missing low, but you're trying to throw the ball straight, stop trying to throw the ball straight. Make an adjustment, a simple adjustment, which would be visualize throwing the ball higher. Pick a spot to throw higher at, and then you will, in turn, make a mechanical adjustment because you've changed your goal. A lot of people don't understand that. Also, fail and then adjust. You are going to fail. Trial and error is what so many people are trying to avoid nowadays, and it's a huge mistake. Make sure you're failing in practice and become really good at adapting and adjusting and changing. And then you'll become really good in a game at making adjustments. See, if we try to avoid failure in practice, we'll never get really good at making adjustments if we're trying to avoid failure in practice. Okay, we have to understand failure is part of it. And part of the problem with parents and coaches being so on top of kids nowadays is they don't allow them to fail. They have all the answers for them, so the kids don't have to figure things out for themselves. It is a huge thing. So if you don't get anything else, is these kids need to be great at adjusting from their last result, especially if it's a failure. And then the last thing is try to find a way to objectively measure your practice any way you can. Objectively measure where the ball was hit, where the ball was thrown, how fast the ball was hit, how fast the ball was thrown. Anything you can do in terms of giving yourself objective feedback as opposed to what America is driving players really into the ground by, in my opinion, is subjective feedback. If you lined up 10 hitting coaches in the major leagues or in college baseball and you asked them to run a hitting clinic or tell us what the ideal swing is, and the same thing with the pitching coaches, you'd have 10 different answers. You'd have 10 different hitting answers, 10 different pitching answers. So that is all subjective. So if we're trying to force one person's ideal mechanical model on everybody, you're not going to get a good result for the majority. So this is where we're screwing people up, and we're taking away their natural and making it unnatural. I spend probably 50% of my time trying to get kids back to the natural, and that is saying something. So when we get a kid and they come in and they're, say, example, 11, 12, 13 years old or older, and I look at it and be like, okay, well, that movement right there is a taught movement, and if it's a flaw, I'm going, it was taught, it was into you. It is not something you were doing. I always say, when you're 7 or 8 years old swinging a wiffle ball bat, that's not how you swung. That was natural. And that's what we got to be careful of. So if you're a parent of a baseball player, one of the things is make sure that you're not letting them become mechanical, because there's a big difference between having good mechanics and being mechanical. There's a huge difference. So at that point, if you haven't gotten that book, make sure you do so. I also want to spend the remainder time on a couple different topics. Number one, at Fastball USA, we got some great upcoming events coming up. And then I also want to recognize some of our students that have been just doing an awesome job in our academy. And, of course, we appreciate all the hard work they do. So, first off, this weekend, Ron Woolforth at the Texas Baseball Ranch is back at Fastball USA. I believe it's the 17th or 18th time. That's November 6th, 7th, and 8th. The bad news is that event is already sold out. Most of Ron's events sell out when he comes to Chicago. But the good news is Ron will be back January 29th, 30th, and 31st. You heard it here first. He'll be back January 29th, 30th, and 31st. And I have 36 openings. They will go on sale. Will be open to the public to purchase to get a spot into that camp. We will put it on sale probably starting next week in about 7 or 10 days. So watch out for that. If you haven't gotten to that event, you want to do so. If you want to return to that event, watch out for that. Again, that's January 29th, 30th, and 31st. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, later on this month, we have our 2-day explosive hitting camp, November 21 and 22. If you haven't experienced one of those, you might want to do that as well. That camp is limited to only 12. It's a mini camp, and we spend 2 days of intensive hitting instruction on our explosive hitting program. And what we do is we personalize the process. That way, each kid that goes into that camp has a goal and a plan when they leave to implement during their off-season training. And that's November 21 and 22. That's the explosive hitting camp. And then most recently added is a brand new camp that we're very excited to be adding. It's referred to as TBP Elite, which is Total Baseball Power Elite. It's a weekend boot camp. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that camp basically takes our entire program of throwing velocity, hitting power, moving quicker, and puts it all into one weekend. We're excited to roll out that camp because it's a great opportunity, number one, for people who are maybe not around us to get in and to work our entire program, but also those who are somewhat local that can't get out very often. It's good for you. Now, this was specifically designed with position players in mind. So not just pitchers, but also position players like shortstops and catchers and outfielders, because most people don't realize how important throwing strength, arm strength, is important to play at the next level. So hitting power, your ability to hit is very important. Your ability to throw fast, very important. Your ability to move fast is very important. The game is much faster at the next level. So what we have done is we've created an intensive boot camp that will focus on arm strength, moving faster, and hitting harder. The traits and qualities you're going to need to showcase yourself to top colleges and pro scouts in the future. And it's based around everything that pro scouts are looking for. It's basically, I call it our college development camp for those who are one day want to play college baseball and professional baseball. This is the camp that we've created to make sure people understand what they need to be doing in order to have a better opportunity to play at the next level. And from there, all that stuff and information is on our website. Obviously, go to fastballusa.com and find out all the information you can on that. Now, if you're a current student at Fastball, or maybe you're a new student or a current student that knows somebody that wants to be a new student, what I would suggest is simply send us an email to set up an evaluation, and we will then go through a process of testing ball exit speed, throwing speed. We go through a video process where we look at your technique, and we just put it all together and get an idea of exactly where you are right now. And then we help you set short-term goals and long-term goals, and then make a program suggestion for you. But step one would be sending us an email and getting you that first evaluation session. To set that up, you just email fastballusa@hotmail.com. Just email that address, again, fastballusa@hotmail.com, and put in the subject evaluation, and then we'll set up an appointment for your first evaluation. So finally, as we get into the home stretch of our first podcast, we want to recognize our students that have had success. Now, a lot of our students have had success, but very specifically some longtime students that really have stood out here, and some great things have happened in the last few months. So starting with those who have committed to college baseball, which seems to be happening quite often here at Fastball USA. Number one, Ethan Routson, a longtime Fastball USA student, started between the 7th and 8th grade. He committed to play baseball at Dallas Baptist University, and Ethan is now a senior. He'll be heading there next fall. Another one of our students that started right about going into 8th grade is Connor Rektorski. Connor is headed to Western Illinois next year. Connor is also a senior in high school. And another guy, one of the hardest working guys we know, Joey Hanley, will be heading to North Central College, which is in Naperville, Illinois. Joey Hanley is a right-handed pitcher. And Joey himself also started in about the 7th or 8th grade. And another guy who started, ironically, roughly at the same time, Jack Bellinger. Jack will be heading to Illinois State University next year. Jack is also now a senior. But they're a great example on the baseball end of guys who started in 7th, 8th grade and have spent a ton of time in the training center and completely understand the concept of training versus being overcoached. So congratulations to those guys. But our success is not any longer limited to baseball, and that's what we're also excited about. Mary Eliopoulos, who's been training now, this is her second off-season training with us, committed to Aquinas College in Michigan, and Anissa Eliopoulos committed to Rutgers University. They're both obviously cousins that have come in, and we've got now probably 8 to 10 girls who are pretty consistently coming in and training at Fastball, and very serious softball athletes. So congratulations to both Anissa and Mary, because you're really leading a softball revolution that's now beginning to start here at Fastball USA. And quickly, a shout out to a college freshman who spent several years training with us, probably going back to he was 13 years old. A longtime fastball student, Scotty Fuchs. Scott is committed and actually now at Knox College. And Scotty's a college baseball player and continues his education at Knox College, and we'll be seeing him soon as he continues his off-season training. So congrats to Scott, and good luck over there at Knox. And we want to conclude this with a couple guys we want to kind of bring out in an event that we just had. Julio Cajias is our team fastball player. He's a freshman, was recently named to the the Power Showcase event, which is held at Marlins Stadium. That's the same Power Showcase event that you may have saw Bryce Harper's video on where he's hitting the ball 500 feet. It's the same event. Julio was chosen to represent 15U and represent Illinois at the 15U level in that Home Run Power Showcase event. So congratulations to Julio. And last week we had a little competition that we divided into for ball exit speed. And for freshmen and sophomores, Julio tied with Ryan Singsank as top ball exit speed in the academy that night. Both of them created 85-mile-an-hour ball exit speed. Both of them are freshmen. That was a tremendous competition and event that we had, and everybody had a lot of fun. Ryan actually won in extra innings, so the guys had a blast with that. Also, at the 7th and 8th grade level, they tested bat speed, and Zach Schwartz, who's an 8th grader, topped at 87 miles per hour in bat speed. He won the 7th and 8th grade competition event, which was outstanding. And then Zach's sister, Ashley Schwartz, won the 5th and 6th grade, or I should say 6th grade and under division with, I believe, 62 or 63 miles an hour in bat speed. That is incredible. Again, Ashley, part of that softball revolution that is going on right now at Fastball. And lastly, every now and then we have actually before I skipped that, we actually missed our junior-senior champion. Our junior-senior champion was Sean Cummins from Lake Park High School. And Sean hit 89 miles an hour that night and won our little competition event for the night. But even more impressive, he recently went to a showcase in which there were well over 100 students, 100 baseball players at. And in terms of ball exit speed, Sean finished in the top 5, surpassing 90-mile-per-hour ball exit speed, and was in the top 5 of well over 100 players at that showcase. So congratulations to Sean. Keep hitting the ball and keep hitting it hard. And that's the evolution. That's the concept that we've gotten to at Fastball USA. Is we have a clear mission. One of the people ask me all the time, why do you guys hit the ball so hard? Why do you throw so hard? What's your secret? Well, the first secret is really simply is because that's our goal. That's our intent, which a large part of America, that is not their intent. They're too worried about ball four base hit. They're too worried about just make contact, just throw strikes. And our guys are busy trying to hit the ball as hard as possible and to throw it as fast as possible. And speaking of throwing it as fast as possible, we had a visitor last week come in, a longtime Fastball USA student when he was in high school. His name is Ryan Hinchley. Ryan Hinchley was drafted by the Chicago White Sox this past summer of 2015, the 9th round by the Chicago White Sox. When Ryan was in high school, he started during his junior year, actually. He went from throwing 80 miles an hour to throwing 90 miles per hour in one off season. Ryan got it to a point where he got a scholarship to play baseball at the University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC. He was a UIC Flame, and then had another spike in velocity his senior year in college, where he went from throwing at a top and right around 90 miles an hour to then topping at about 95 miles per hour. Ryan was a special visitor at our academy last week. It was great to have him out. He was just excited to give back and share some knowledge of his time of playing pro ball this summer and some of his experiences. Ryan had a chance to work with some of the students during training, but it was just great to have one of our Fastball USA alumni back and seeing a guy that's continuing to work hard with great work ethic, and what a great kid from a great family. So it's always good to see. We have special visitors that come out throughout the winter and the summer in our programs, and it's always good to see them come back and share their experiences and successes that they're having at the highest levels. If you need more information about Fastball USA, make sure you go to the website, fastballusa.com. Get in on one of those events, and certainly, if you're a new student, set up the evaluation by emailing fastballusa@hotmail.com. We look forward to possibly having another podcast here in the short, not too distant future. But until that time, remember, be uncommon and hit that ball hard and throw it hard as well. Go to our website, www.fastballusa.com.